We got to get a few more people. I bet my wife we would have more than the middle school.
Are you counting her?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, we got more. If you're just joining us and you have a question, as we go at any time, we really want to focus on getting your questions answered if you have any. So if you want to put them into the chat, we will try our best to answer it.
Yeah, actually, they'll go in the Q&A part.
Sorry, yep.
Yeah, not the chat part. So with the Q&A.
Q&A, my bad. You guys think you all set? Ready to go? Okay. Welcome, everybody. This is our third workshop. I'm just talking about tech issues in Chatham, just trying to, the goal is really just to help parents answer any questions. What we really want to do is have a nice, smooth rollout to the year. We know it's an unusual year, and parents are worried. I'm worried, as a parent. We just want to make sure we're being very transparent and answering questions, and especially looking at tech and how we can do things better. So if you don't know me, I recognize a few names, but I'm Mike Stead. I'm now the assistant principal at the middle school. So if you are joining us from the middle school and you have questions, this is focused on high school a little bit, but don't feel like I also invited all parents to it. So if you have a question, we'd be happy to answer it at any level. We're joined by Ashley Keegan. She's a social studies teacher. We have 3 people that work in the high school. So we've got high school questions all covered. Mike Loomis, he also teaches in the high school. Sarah Murray, I'm sure many of you know from MED, 5th grade. And Donna Eager, it works both at the middle school and at the high school in the library. And these are sort of our tech leaders in the district. So if you have questions, concerns, or thoughts, it's a great panel to, if we don't know something, we like to kind of dig in and just kind of try to figure it out. So feel free to ask questions. We'll throw out some questions that have come up in the Google form I sent out. A lot of parents had, so they're just sort of general questions. A lot of high school parents just sort of wanted general updates and where are we. But one of the questions we got from a parent was they were just interested in insights, things we've learned from the spring. And I'll just sort of start it off and then maybe let our panelists speak a little bit. I'll speak a little bit first from the parent. I have 3 boys. And so thinking from the parent side, being home, trying to help them with their own work, I saw a lot of issues, a lot of things that could be streamlined. helping them to learn more. And from a parent and a teacher point of view, and now as in an administrative role, we're really looking to make everything better than we did in the spring. We were thrown into it. It was a huge learning experience. All the people, our panelists tonight, have been helping other teachers to get better at some of the technology, figuring out what works and what could be better. So I think our biggest takeaway is we need to keep the connections with our students. We all got into teaching because we love that interaction with students and the back and forth, and doing that online is a lot different. And there's lots of glitches and issues. And so we're trying to streamline those and work really closely with parents and answer questions and hear what you have to say too. So even if you just want to give feedback that we can bring to bring back or share, we'd be happy to do that too. I didn't know if any of the other panelists, especially maybe the high school teachers.
Yeah, Mike, I would love to talk about some insights. I am the leader of the senior team, and so a lot of what I had been thinking about over the spring kind of related to the things that we're asking our seniors to do. And there were a lot of gaps. And I think one of the interesting insights was, how do we work kind of on the fly, learning in real time to bridge those gaps? And I think a lot of it is responsibility for the students to really take control of their own learning. And I think we're going to see the necessity for that now more than ever. And so that's one of the insights that I had, as far as how can I, again, kind of on the fly in real time, facilitate those skills, those kind of soft skills for all students, but again, particularly for seniors. So that was a huge insight for me. I think students really taking ownership is going to be key.
And I think we're seeing that at all levels too.
Yeah.
Right. And I agree with Ashley that I think the most important thing that I learned is that we need to make sure that, and it happened so quickly, it was hard to make sure that students are confident in the ability to work around these platforms with Google, like Google Meets and Google Classroom, so that they feel really confident and they can be really organized so that they can be independent in their learning, because that's really, we want to foster that independence. That's really important.
I'll just speak. I know this is the high school forum, but if we have any elementary and middle parents, what Ashley just talked about, we're always reminding the kids about getting to high school and being a senior and all those capstone skills. So, the main goal, like they said, is organizing, the kids feeling comfortable. So really, it's not the technology impeding their learning. I mean, we know our kids are savvy and they know what's going on, but I think for everybody on the panel and any of our colleagues would say that the kids really helped us, in the spring, kids and parents, giving us that feedback, this really worked, this didn't work. So, I think Mike said that already, but keep that feedback coming to us so we can hone and refine and really serve your kids as best we can.
And I think just to add to that, the tech companies too that provide a lot of the stuff, Google, they're updating. They've heard a lot of the issues we've had, and a lot of new things are being rolled out in the fall, maybe a little as we get started, to make some of our meets more similar to what we would do in a classroom to really engage students. It's been a learning, I think, all across the board. We're all trying to get better. Anybody else want to add anything before we go to the next?
Yeah, I just had to wait for my dog to stop roughhousing out in the hallway because he was making lots of noise. Yeah, we learned a lot from the spring, and we got a lot of feedback from students and some parents, either during that or once the school year was over, and some questions and comments as throughout the summer. So we're looking to try to continuously improve upon how we're delivering instruction and how we can better get the students to receive all the knowledge that they would, whether they're at home or in school. And with how we're doing things, with some being remote and some coming in every other day, it's definitely a challenge. But we want to make sure that everybody is at least a step higher or two on some technology tips. And we encourage you to ask questions, whether it's today or throughout the school year, to your teacher. Somebody will get back to you. Somebody will help figure out how you can do something a little bit easier, a little bit better. And I think some of the tips that you're going to see tonight will help make things a little bit quicker. And, you know, at the high school level, yes, we want them to have a bit more responsibility and be able to do it on their own. But, you know, at some point, if you're there and they're struggling and, you know, you're willing to help out with something that you've learned, that, hey, we don't care how they get there. We just want them to get there. So we're going to go over some organization things. Ashley's going to talk a little bit about that soon. Mike's going to give you some instruction on how to make your internet connection better and some of the programs overall that we use. And we want it also to tailor it to what you guys are interested in. So feel free to use that question and answer box. And we'll fill in time with some other things that we think will be helpful for you.
Yeah, so I'll just kind of jump in with some general things to think about with the technology we use. One thing to consider is that you're probably familiar with a lot of Google products, but they don't work exactly the same as your personal Google stuff, and the stuff we have in school aren't exactly the same. A lot of it's pretty similar, but here and there, there's little things that are different that you might try to do that are, you're prevented from doing it because we're of security issues that we have to lock down. And I think I skipped, let me see if I go back one. We really are bound by educational law. There's, you might hear Ed 2D law, and it really is everything we use has to follow all these protocols for privacy for students, which I think is a really great thing. Which is another reason why if you have a question, it might take a while to get you the answer, or if you have a suggestion, you have to go through this process of making sure that if it's some addition to what we already have, that it keeps the students safe. For example, I'm working on Minecraft has an educational component to it that I'm working on now, and it's just going through the process of checking everything. It's not as easy as just sort of signing up and you have that. So that's why keep it, sending us your questions or your thoughts and having an open mind. Just in patience. We know it can be frustrating at times, especially when something really seems really simple and you're not getting an answer or a solution quickly. It can be a little frustrating. So we want you to be able to share those things. So that being said, the Chromebooks all obviously are under the web browser Chrome. What you should know is sometimes some things won't work. Like if you're on an Apple device, you're in Safari and you try to use some of the stuff for school, you might see some issues that it won't work always. So make sure if you're ever like, it should work, other people are getting it to work, it might be just a simple switch to go in through the Chrome browser, which is Chrome is a web browser. And a lot of the add-ons we have, like there was an issue with Google Grid View. A lot of parents were trying to get that in the spring, and if they weren't in Chrome, it made it a little difficult to make sure that worked the same way that other people were getting it to work. All school devices, are connected to the district, and we use a thing called Go Guardian to monitor what's happening. And if you're not on a school device, obviously a phone or something, if you're having tech issues, that might be an issue where our tech people can't really help too much if you're not on one of our devices. They have more power to address issues if you're in not only in Chrome, but in our device, on our devices. So that's just sort of something to know. And just, I want to always put this in, teachers work really hard. We did this on Monday. We worked a couple hours putting together a little presentation, and the tech just didn't work. We practiced, we thought we had it all set up, and it didn't work out right. And teachers go through that all the time. And what the teacher can do and the student can do are two different things. So sometimes the teacher thinks, oh, it worked for me, I did it on my account, and they try it with in a Google Classroom or something, and it doesn't quite work, and you see it at home. So I just would ask, just you have patience with some of that. That's sometimes I've seen it happen where teachers had it all worked out, and then it's a matter of the student accounts lock them out for whatever reason, just because of security that didn't get pushed through. And the teachers get frustrated that they can't get answers quickly a lot of times too. That our tech people extremely busy, as you can imagine. So I'll start off with sort of the first tip, because it comes up a lot, and that is how to get faster Wi-Fi, or if you have Wi-Fi issues. And this was sort of told to me. First thing, there's three things you can do that may help. It might not cure it, but it may help. And that's that if you have any gaming systems, first of all, if you can power those down. Some of them download things continuously, so they'll eat up bandwidth and might slow your internet down. Two, if your Wi-Fi is older than 3 years, you might want to update it. I know that's not always possible, but that's another issue that could be happening. And then finally, the third thing is if you can get a new modem, if you haven't had one in the last 3 years, updating that modem to the latest, whatever they have, the cable company, should be helpful to speed up your internet at home.
Hey, Mike, there's
I'm sorry, Ashley, you go ahead.
no, please, Mike, go ahead.
I was just saying along those same lines, it would be a little bit more advantageous if they're using the school Chromebook rather than their own personal laptop or desktop. Oftentimes, if they're on their own computer, they're operating many tabs, they're playing some games at the same time as they're trying to do some schoolwork and stuff, and that's using up some internet speed. And then the school videos or Meet doesn't have as good of a connection. And by being on the Chromebook, it just helps a little bit more focus. Sure, they might have another computer going on next to them, but if this is right in front of them, and they're using the school Chromebook, we feel a little bit more able to push things like open up a website that we want them all to look at. We can send them direct comments, either individually or to the full class. So we'd really like to encourage when they're at home to use the school Chromebook. Right.
Yeah, I was just going to say, since there were no questions, I was wondering if maybe I can hop in with some organizational tips. I'll be perfectly honest, I'm not much of a tech guru. In fact, I just emailed Mr. Loomis today for some tech, but I got my video thing. So, can you guys hear me? Okay, I'm back. All right, those tech problems that Mr. Stead was talking about kind of happen real time. All right, let me put my video back on here. So I'm not much of a tech guru. I pride myself on being pretty organized, so that's what I'm here for. I know a lot of the anxiety in the fall came from just like the levees breaking with emails and notifications and Google Documents, and all of a sudden everything was online and there really wasn't any method for organization. So if I can share my screen, Mr. Stead, and I'm just going to show you a couple quick tips for Google Drive and Gmail to kind of help here. So you can see this is my Google homepage. In the corner here, I'm already signed in, so that's really important. It's very easy to sign in. If you haven't, it'll just say sign in, and you put in your email and your password. Couple quick things about Gmail. I think one of the biggest things for organization and keeping anxiety low is keeping things out of your inbox. You can say there's not a lot of stuff in my inbox. And so I try to keep it pretty clean. I try to get to it as soon as I can. One of the biggest tips I would say is make a plan to check your email in the morning. One of the first things that you can do is check your email and some of these other places. The other thing is these folders. So think about some of the general emails, Google Classroom, maybe a folder for each class or for each teacher. And when you get the emails, you can go right up here, you click that, you can go to this arrow, move to, and if you already have the label like Google Classroom created, you can pop it in there, or you can create a new label, and I might do health screening because I'm gonna come to that a lot. And you'll notice it gets right out of my inbox and it comes into health screening. So in the morning before I go to work, I can go right there, or if I get one every morning, I can move it right there. I think keeping things out of your inbox is really important. The other thing I would suggest with your Gmail is a miscellaneous or an important stuff label, kind of like a junk drawer. Doesn't really have a place, but you know you're going to come back to it. Put it right in that miscellaneous folder, and it'll help to keep your inbox clean. The other thing, a lot of the same tips in Google Drive. The more kind of streamlined you can have your home screen in Google Drive, the better. If you need to start anything new, you're just going to click new, and you can start new folders. Obviously, my internet is a little bit slow, and documents and slides and things like that. The folders will be labeled alphabetically, so kind of the same thing. You might want to think about what kind of documents are you doing the most, you know, one per class, or you can see I have lessons for 2020. I update my lessons each year. I put them in a new folder. So the more you can do this before you go to school and have this already done, the better shape you're in. I would also suggest color coordinating. If you right click on the folder, you'll get a bunch of different things that you can do. One of the things that you can do is change the color. That just helps differentiate, maybe a different color per class, something like that. Same thing, you see I have a miscellaneous folder. I love having that junk drawer in my Gmail or in my Google Drive. You'll notice down here is all kind of standalone documents. I don't have a lot of those. I like to find a place because it gets clogged up. And when you get to this and you can't find what you're looking for, that's when kind of the panic sets in, and I'll just come back to it. And that's what we don't want. We want it to be organized so that you are having fun learning and doing these things, not overwhelmed by, I have 1,000 documents in my homepage and they're all labeled homework. And so I don't have a lot down here. I like to put them in places. One of the things I do have is a to-do list, and you can star that, which means kind of your things that you come to very often. So I have a lot of to-do lists here, actually, I'm looking at, but that helps me. However you stay organized is how you stay organized. And the last thing I want to show you here, and then if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer. I know there were some coming up. Right here, you can change it to a list view. I think I'm a little bit of an anomaly in that I like the grid view. I think probably the list view is actually a little bit easier on the eyes, frankly. I think it's nice to have it kind of linear. So you might want to start with that. You'll notice, obviously, again, the alphabetized folders and then your standalone documents down here. It's an all or nothing. So it's all grid or all list. You can't do separate in folders. So that's kind of a really quick, I know I went through that quick. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm happy to send me emails, have your students send me emails, whatever works for that. But I think organization is really paramount. You check your email, you check your Google Classroom, and anything else that you might be getting notifications from, and you set yourself up for success for the day.
And I'll just,
Ashley, it's kind of building off of what you were just doing. They said, will the first day of school include these suggestions for students? Letting parents are hearing it now, but will it be given to the kids as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. I certainly am going to build this in. I think it's something as teacher leaders and as colleagues we can build in. I think that it might be beneficial to have a little kind of these quick tips to students as well. Kind of throwing my colleagues under the bus here right now, but I think that would be a positive thing, or maybe sharing this device, especially if we're looking for responsibility from our high schoolers. I think this stuff would be really useful. So I'd love to put a pin in it. At the very least, I have a couple videos that I can work with Mr. Stead on both of these things to get out to students and maybe put them on a website or through student government. So I don't have a complete answer, but I think it's a great idea. The more we can engage our students in this, the better.
and I can speak to the middle school at least, but we've been having a lot of these conversations that part of the reasoning behind the way we're entering the year is to provide that time for students and teachers to have that ability to go over the technology and to talk about it. So at the middle school, we're embedding that right into the opening week of school, really getting in, making sure the students know the technology before you use it, which is sort of, teachers would have, I think, naturally have done that if it were a typical, like, it was so fast. I know from being in Sarah's class that she always previews the technology before handing it off to the kids, and they usually have a pretty good grasp of it. So but just one of the things actually I was working on today for the middle school is sort of piggybacking off of what Ashley was saying, is labeling, just taking the time to making really good labels for your folders, and talking, we want to talk at the middle school about having a common way of doing it too across the board. So all teachers are using sort of the common, it's not different for different teachers. So we wanted to have that discussion with teachers at the beginning of the year so we can kind of streamline it for parents who might be seeing it from 5 different teachers and it looks a little different. We want to streamline that. And just to add to what Ashley was saying, I just learned this this year, which makes perfect sense. But if you just use numbers in front of your titles too, it'll have the numbers come up first, just like you can use alphabetical or numerical. So, and I'll just share one quick thing because it's my favorite thing. So I'll just share.
And as you're sharing that, Mike, I just wanted to say too, I work very closely with the English students, so that's something in the high school I can talk to them about, maybe the first couple of weeks, talking to the students about getting organized in email. And like Ashley said, she has some videos and I have some videos, and we can put something together for them to have for students. So that's something I can definitely pass to the English teachers and see if they'd be willing to do that.
And just quickly, if you're in Gmail, and you go into an email, they've moved this. There's a little button that not a lot of people use, but it's called Add to Tasks. And it kind of turns emails into to-do lists. So if you click on it, a to-do list will come over. This is a student account I'm in. It's a test student, and you can rename, if it's a homework assignment or an update from a teacher, they want you to fix an assignment or something, you can then click right on that. It'll take you right to the email. When you're done, you can cross it off. I like to share that one out, one I like.
No, it's a great question. And a good example of things that they can do to help get organized. When I was subbing before I came to Chatham, I subbed a lot in the middle school, and the sixth grade teachers at the beginning of the school year, they always spent a lot of time helping students organize their folders, how to set up their notebook, how to have things in their backpack, to have a planner for when they go home. And it made me think, like, well, why don't students have these organizational skills in high school for all their tech folders and emails? Maybe nobody showed them, and they didn't even think that that was something available. So I think we definitely do need to take a little bit more time and at the beginning to remind students that this will really help. If you take a little bit of time, it'll save you so much time at the end of the day because of your organization. So excellent points, Ashley and Mike.
And we have a question that I don't know the answer to, but I can sort of dig into, but I'll bring it up to the panelists. How does a student switch from Chatham's network to Questar's network using a Chatham device? I'm not exactly sure what Questar's network would be, but I don't know does anybody have an idea of what that would be?
No, I don't have. That's probably something we have to put out to maybe our IT department or the high school admin who oversee the Questar.
Or even Questar. It might be, because if it's a Chatham device and Chatham network, it might be something that Questar needs to enable.
Or Questar's network could be web-based and they just are logged in as themselves and they, go to Chrome and log in through the web. I'm not quite sure, but we can definitely get the answer to that question.
Yeah, if you wanted to even email me, it's the same tag as your child, but just do STED-M. And if you want to just send me that question, I'll dig into it a little more. I'll try to copy it here and paste it so I have it. But if you can email me this so I can email it back, the answer back to you, I can get on that. Did you guys want to go into a little more organization, or Sarah, I see you nodding a little bit there.
I mean, I just feel like Ashley did the Gmail and some tips there. I mean, definitely, I think maybe we should roll into Classroom, Google Meet, and Calendar especially for the high school kids, because out of our whole population, they're the kids that are going to be using, pretty independently and more often than any other students in our district. So I don't know if Mike, you want to go to Google Classroom and do your stuff?
Yeah, I can do that. I'm just going to share my screen, and what you'll be seeing here is Google Classroom. This is Nathaniel's Google Classroom screen, and I made up a class for him that he's the only student enrolled. So if you've never seen what it looks like on the student side of things, because as a parent, if you were invited to the Google Classroom, all you get is either a daily or a weekly notification that they had an assignment due or they have an assignment overdue. You don't necessarily see all the background and details behind it. You would have to have access and log in as your student in order to see all this. But this is really helpful for them to understand what assignments they have outstanding, what's coming up, and what grades they've got and what comments from the teachers. So these are things that we'll need to make sure that they understand as everything will be in Classroom for all of our assignments. Sarah pointed this to-do list. So all of the classes are here, and here is Nathaniel's to-do list. He's got assigned, missing, and done. Now you want this assigned listing. It looks like there's 21 items here. You want this to go away. As you complete them, they will reduce in number. Anything that is missing, the due date has gone by. So that one is probably going to be important to look at. And anything that is done will just show you all of the things that have been completed and what the grade on those were. Oh, look, this assignment was done early and got a 10 out of 10. So that was fantastic. You can see all of the different classes on here. in this to-do list.
And before Mike leaves here, and he'll show you when he gets into the classwork tab, I found that a lot of kids are doing the work, but they're just not clicking the turn in button, and it stays in that to-do list. And that could be frustrating. You know, I did the work, it's showing up here. And, you know, when Mike gets to another view in the classwork tab, he'll show you where that is. So like you said, a lot of kids are doing the work, but they're just forgetting that last step, I think, because they're so excited that they're done. So they have to push that through so their teachers can grade it and get it back and return it back to them so they can see it.
So I'll look at this sample classroom that we have set up. They see a stream, which is generally announcements or shared information with the students. The Classwork tab is where all of the different assignments that they have are. And you can see over here, they have whether there's a due date or no due date. And it's by unit. Sometimes it's by week, depending on the teacher and how they set it up. But similar to that to-do list, I love this little view your work tab. When you click on that, it doesn't matter what unit, it's all of their assignments. And you'll see, okay, great, he got 100 out of 100. There was a comment here, either to him or from him. There's this assignment number 2, and it says assigned. And I made this point to some of the other classes that we've been teaching. The students will turn in something sometimes and then feel that they're done with it. And sometimes the teacher will send it back to them with a comment saying, you need to finish this, or you need to reword this a little bit better. And without giving them a grade and just saying, okay, yeah, well, I guess I'll give you 5 out of 10 points for that half work. No, I'm going to turn it back to you so that you can finish it and do what the expectation is, because we'd rather them be able to do it fully than just get a partial grade. So on this assignment 2, so here's his assignment, and you see right away the 2 comments. He asked if the questions work, and I said, no, please resubmit for what we discussed in class. So if he opened up this assignment, remember I'm on his account right now. I even made a comment on the assignment here. So he could fixed his work, whatever he typed the correct answer now. And then he can go up here to the button that says turn in. And once he clicks that button, turn in, I get a notification on my email that says Nathaniel Loomis has turned in an assignment. It tells me when I go into my Google Classroom, all the students that have not turned in, all the ones that have, so I can grade it. And it's that email conciseness and taking things out into the different folders or deleting old emails is really going to be helpful with all these notifications you get. They can have Google Classroom as an app on their phones, and you could have it on yours too. If you ended up having their password to get in, you'd see all their notifications and stuff if you really wanted to. But they can get notifications for when I've graded it and turned it back to them, or I've made comments. So keeping up on that email in Google Classroom and work being completed is really important. While I'm on this screen, I wanted to show one thing that not a lot of people, I think, knew about. If you decided, okay, doing it on the computer is just too much work for me, I really work better on paper, you can do the work on paper and you can finish it all and then go up here to insert image, and their Chromebooks and most laptops have a camera on it. So insert an image from the camera, and right on this Google Doc, I could hold up this. Again, I can't really hold it up, but here's my assignment. It's a smiley face. It'll take a picture of it and insert it directly into the assignment. So they don't have to take a picture with their phone and then email it to themselves and then try to get it to go to Classroom. Right on the Google Doc or Google Slides, they can add pictures there. It's really helpful.
And I just want to add, if the kids are on I know my high school kids both have iPhones and used Classroom on their iPhones, like downloaded the app, attaching pictures, taking pictures. And I know I got an email from a parent I was just reading through about audio files, being able to submit audio files. You know, they can take an audio file, save it, and upload it as well, and we can hear it. I mean, it depends on your internet speed and how long the upload is, but all of those things are possible, like right in a Google assignment here. Like on a Chromebook, it would be insert file, I think from your computer it says, on the insert menu, upload from computer. As long as the kids have the file, they can plop it in and then we can see it. So that kind of addresses, like, you know, my kid does better on paper, or my kid is better like speaking, you know, of course, in conjunction with their teacher to make sure that's an appropriate method for getting the work in. But all of those modalities are included in the Google platform that we use.
Probably very good for math in the high school and possibly science. If you're writing out some of those long equations, the keyboard might not be efficient or have them at all. So that could be a really kind of simple solution to some of those issues.
And I'll just add that there is a thing called Google Keep. Not a lot of people use it. I really like it. It's over in the little, what do we call that? The hamburger, the waffle. And it has a note section, and it works really well with the Google stuff because it's a Google product. But you can use it to, you know, do handwritten notes, and it's got a little paper feature Mr. Loomis can click on. And so if you want lines or graph paper, and if some of the Chromebooks came with a little plastic stylus, it works really, really well. Not all of them. Yep. There, Sarah has one. And if your Chromebook has a little Wacom picture on it, you can definitely use it. So a stylus might be something you want to get. Those little, I go to workshops sometimes and they give the little styluses with, it's a pen on one side and like a little rubber thing on the other. They don't seem to work as well as they will work, but they sort of catch. But a stylus works nice. The Google stylus, so I don't even know what it's called. It also works, Google Keep too works like almost like a Pinterest. Like if students are searching websites, they can just right click and it'll say save to keep, and it'll go there in more of a picture format, sort of like, you know, Pinterest with their school stuff. So it can be kind of useful.
And it works really great with images too. If you need just a place to throw, you know, some images, it works well for that too.
So in an email I received, some parents are asking about where would they find Google Meet? Where would the link be? So Mike, do you want to go back to your classroom homepage and show where is, so just so parents understand, there's a couple different ways to get onto a Google Meet. One of them is where Mike will show you right in Google Classroom. It's right at the top of the screen. On our end, we can make it visible or turn it off. So, you know, I would assume, I know in my Google Classroom, we had a weekly schedule about when Zooms would be, and it was clearly noted, join through Google Classroom. So that's one way. Another way to join Google Meet rather is to go, there's two ways in the Google Meet app. Go to the waffle like Mr. Loomis is, and you're clicking on Google Meet, and then there's a join or create a meeting. Yep, and if you just type Meet in that browser bar, it comes up too. Students can get on. Now that's, I know I used it with younger students. There's a join or create, and you can click on it and you type a word in, like maybe my code is 10 a.m. And then the kids wait for me to start the meeting and they can join in that way. And then the other way they might get a link to join is through a calendar event that a teacher creates a calendar event. Like maybe it's a senior team thing. It's meeting with your advisor. I'll put it in our calendar, and you can put a link right in there. And Miss Eager is going to talk about the calendar in a little bit. But the Google Meet, there's 3 different ways to join.
times I know I use Meet and Zoom kind of as the same. We'll all be doing Google Meets. This is a Zoom because it's a little bit different, and that Ed2D law comes into play with the Google Meet and the Chatham email, but it will all be Google Meets, which is actually way more convenient because you have all those, you know, different ways through the Google platform to get there. So sometimes I use them synonymously, but through the school, it'll all be Meets.
Just to jump into one of the questions we have, I think that answered one of them, where to find the Zooms would be listed. I think that's, we're not really going to be using Zooms, but Meets. And then another question, when will teachers start setting up Google Classroom for this year? And I'm sure teachers are thinking about it. Have you, any of you guys, you would wait till your students, we're still,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we just got our school rosters, but we will be going back, you know, for those first 4 days of professional development. And that time is, I work with Donna on the professional development committee. It's really getting all these things set to go and ready. Google makes it really easy to take our rosters from our platform for grading called School Tool and just put them right into Google Classrooms. So it takes a little bit of the onus off of the students to get into each of those classrooms. So my guess would be sometime in those first 4 days, that Tuesday through Friday, September 11th, to give teachers some time to get their classrooms set up. Many of us, especially in the high school, have been seeing a ton of construction. And then obviously we haven't really been able to get into the buildings, and rosters are kind of constantly changing. So I would say by that following Monday, which is maybe the 14th. Oh, Mr. Loomis maybe has his calendar up there. I would say you're probably going to get some Google notifications for Classroom. Yeah, by the 14th, on the first day of classes, your students should be in their Google Classrooms.
Yeah, and I could say we're still there's still parents working out their decisions on what they're doing. So like a lot of it's in flux in terms of who we have where, and trying to put them, what cohort they're going to be working in. And so it's not it's not a typical year, obviously.
And I think that kind of graciousness with the technology wonders might also come with kind of getting all things organized. It seems like there's a lot of moving parts with the scheduling and the remote and the hybrid and the, everything that goes into it. So the technology makes it super easy, but kind of the human element is a little bit more difficult. So a little grace in those first couple days, but it's super easy to get them in. So once we have it figured out, it should be simple.
While you're on calendar, I can talk about that if there's not any more questions.
Any more questions? Feel free to add questions at any time too.
All right, so calendar is a really great tool to stay organized. You can see here that he has things on here, and you can see Nathaniel's name here, and it's checked. So that's his personal calendar. And if Mr. Loomis would, scroll down, there's also other calendars, and these are all of his Google Classrooms. So each Google Classroom has its own calendar. So if it's checked, then the assignments will come up. So it's great that you can see in 1 month where all the assignments are. They're also color coded, which is really great. So that helps to stay organized. And you can uncheck them as well if you just want to focus on one Google Classroom, which is really nice. It also allows them to put because in high school, a lot of them are involved in so many different events and extracurricular, sport. They can put in their schedule. So yeah, go ahead, Mike, and create. And so you can put the title in. You can tell, what the day is. You can do the time, and you can make it, customize it so that you can see that it's going to be every day, it's going to be every Friday. So it really allows you to customize it, which is really great. And again, using the colors also is really great so that, all the sports ones are in one color. and, while maybe a different extracurricular can be, theater could be in another color. So that really helps with organization. And then they can pull up the day. And we were talking last night, which is a really great idea, is having a habit every day to go into email and check and see what kind of notifications you have, or maybe there's an email from a teacher. And then next, go into calendar and see what you have due for that day or for that week. And then really going into your drive and seeing what you have in there. So making a habit of doing those things first thing so that you're really organized for the rest of the day. Is there any questions on that?
I just see oh, Mike, you want to take that last question, or?
I'll just throw it out because how does a parent get to their child's Google Classroom using the parent's personal device?
So the way you would do that, it depends on what device you're on. I know for myself, it's on, if you're on a phone or you're on the computer. If you're on the phone, you need the app, Google Classroom app. If you're on the computer, you would just navigate to google.com and you would sign in, like you can see Mr. Loomis is doing. You would make sure you're signed in as your child, and then you click on Classroom, and you would be in your child's account. Now on your phone, even if you have multiple children, I have 2 children and I had it on mine, like they each logged in through the app, they logged into their school account. I came out of it, added another account, my other child logged in, and then you can toggle between your children's accounts so you can see what they see. You can use that to-do list or view work to be done or see their calendar. So you're just gonna need their password. So to get into those accounts.
And Mr. Loomis, if you could go back, yes, every student is automatically enrolled in, the calendar. If you go back to the Google Classroom, one of your Google Classrooms, you can see it says where it says Google Calendar. I think it was under Classwork.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see Google Calendar. So that automatically, if they're a student in that classroom, they have access to whatever the Google Calendar is for that class. So hopefully that answers that question.
I also wanted to add, in regards to having Google Classroom on a parent's personal device, having access to the parent portal, which again is the school tool, is the program that we use for grades, is also a really good way to stay kind of up to date on assignments. So obviously Google has all of the assignments and there is a chance to grade, but if there's tests or maybe there's participation or any grades that aren't taking place in Google Classroom, the parent portal and students will also have access. I believe you can get your access. I know we normally do it at open house, but it's through the main office at the high school. So if you don't already have access, I would highly suggest you get access. My understanding in looking at the students' devices when they're going through their platform, it's pretty easy to see. You'll really want to check out your teacher's syllabus and kind of look at their grading. But that is also a really good thing. And again, I think if there's any more questions about that, I see Mr. Loomis signing into his. If there's any more questions about that, we can happily answer them. But that's another really good way to stay on top of assignments and things like that.
So here are the assignments tab. Once you now, this is you logging in as you. You can get, this is what we call the parent portal. We call it the student portal it's all the same thing. It's school tool. It's where they have all of the averages, the assignments, their absences, everything that goes into the system that comes out on the report cards. So here I can look through all of his assignments and see how many points each one was and what they got. This one he was exempt from it, or he was absent from this. You can sort it by class. If I just wanted to look at AP World History, I can show you what his grades were. So you can see your students' information on, if they're telling you, like, I know I did that, it's possible that the teacher hasn't updated School Tool yet, or it's possible that they didn't do it yet. It's just more information that you might have. So here you can scroll through any class that you want. You can look at their schedule, which shouldn't have many changes, but also attendance is kind of helpful to be able to see. So you could go through, it'll default to whatever this year is, and you can see the days that they either had to leave early for doctor's appointments or they were absent. And it'll say an unexcused absence if there wasn't a note sent in to Maureen Depew in the attendance office. So make sure you do that, and that way they've got proper information into the system. It all goes in there. It would be nice if all parents could check their contact information as well, just in case you have a new email or phone number, so that the school has that on the record. One thing that can be helpful is this little student view dashboard, and it just gives a little bit more, like, graphically how they're doing as in various classes. I'm not sure why it's not loading very quickly, but it actually would show all his grades for the quarter, and then how many absences for the quarter. And if he missed math class like more than any other class, it's going to show that. So here's just the absences and such. So this is in the 2018-2019 year because I had chosen that. The assessment scores, marking period scores, and period attendance. So here, that just says absences, but maybe there is something on here that I could see. Oh, okay, look. You could see how attendance could affect a grade. Look here, the most absences was in this Algebra 2 class, and it's also one of the classes that had one of the lower grades. So there is a correlation to at least a little bit for attendance and your grades. So we encourage students to be in class, whether it's remote or it's in person, whichever they're working with each day, and to make sure that they catch up on any work that they missed, checking Google Classroom, checking their emails, and checking with their teacher. Any other comments on that?
Well,
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
no, go ahead, Ash. I want to circle back to calendar. So go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, using the parent portal, student portal, school tool is another really good way to kind of stay efficient for two ways. It really kind of cuts out the middle person. I had a lot of students coming to me and saying, what's my grade? What do I owe? And it's right there for them. And I think I often thought of the emails that I was getting from parents that were saying, what does my student owe you or my child owe you? And I was kind of imagining the amount of time that it took between them saying to their, you saying to your child, well, I'm going to email Miss Keegan and figure out what you owe. And then maybe I don't get the email for a couple hours and then I have to go through, and then that whole conversation is lost, and where you can go right on and have that in real time. And so having access to that and being able to answer that question in real time, what do I owe? Or if there's a discrepancy, geez, Ms. Keegan put in a 0, but I know that I did that assignment. Maybe you didn't hit turn in on Google Classroom, or maybe it was my mistake. And I have a lot of students that'll say to me, hey, Ms. Keegan, you missed this, and I do. And so that kind of proactivity really is efficient. And I think kind of my theme, my thesis here is like, the more efficient, the more organized, the less wasted time, the more everybody kind of enjoys learning, and especially in this new environment. I think there's a lot of room for fun. We don't want to be bogged down in inefficiency.
Yeah, we had a question about going back to what we showed in calendar. The question was, will each student be automatically enrolled in their Google Classroom calendars? And the answer is yes, they will be. So if you scroll up a little bit, I know mine, I have to sometimes organize it on the left-hand side. Donna pointed out that my calendar is your child's calendar, but the other calendars, so Mr. Loomis has all these calendars showing up because at one moment in time, he was part of those Google classrooms, or some of them are Google Classrooms. So it will automatically appear there once they're enrolled. Now, I know sometimes if they don't go away, there's a feature, if you just hover over one of those calendars, you'll see the 3 little dots show up, and you can click on hide from list and just get rid of it. If it, like, I know I have some parents where I taught your kids. I can see the person who asked the question, I taught your daughter. If you see Mrs. Murray's 5th grade class there, you know what? Go in and hide it and get rid of it. You don't need it, because I think what Mike and Donna and Ashley are stressing, it's that organization, paring things down. Don't have piles of stuff laying around. Just have what you need for this year. And then, you know what, at the end of the year, we can get rid of that, which actually brings me, if Mike, you will go to Google Classroom, the homepage. Another thing that I always do with my kids at the beginning of the year, if they haven't done it, when they come into class, they're probably going to see their old classes from last year, depending on how the teacher handled it. So remember those little 3 dots that Mike just clicked on in the calendar, always hide more options. Your students can go in and say unenroll, and that will clean out their Google Classroom page. So when they get to school, they have a nice, fresh, clean page. And when their new teachers enroll them in their classes, they'll show up right there. So getting rid of what's not needed is a real goal, I think, for all grade levels, since we're using their Chromebooks and the Google platform so much.
There's a question here that says, is Mr. Coleman, the 9th grade resource teacher, going to use Google Classroom? I can't speak for Mr. Coleman specifically, but I know a lot of times what the resource teachers do is help their students navigate their own Google Classrooms. So if a 9th grade student is taking one of Mr. Loomis's class and they're in their Google Classroom, it's a lot of that navigation. But I would definitely reach out to Mr. Coleman or any of the resource teachers or classroom teachers if you have specific questions about that, because they're definitely working with this material and working with their students to make this transition more seamless.
And sometimes, and I don't know about Mr. Coleman in particular, but sometimes they join different Google Classrooms. I'm a part of a lot of different Google Classrooms in the high school. And so he will join those as a co-teacher so that he has access to the students' work and what's happening in the assignments and stuff. But again, you'd have to check with Mr. Coleman for his particular case.
And there's one more question that I don't have an answer for, but I have a sort of a direction. I'm not sure, speaking of absences, how is the district handling distance learning absences? Doctor's appointments, obviously a notice sent. If my child clearly isn't feeling well, even distance learning isn't necessarily an option. Do you excuse them from school, individual classes? This is kind of an interesting question. And if you're remote learning, we're looking right now at different ways of tracking attendance. Obviously, one of the great benefits of technology is that you can use it at the times that are convenient for you. So we're exploring ways where maybe we can look at the time on task as part of the attendance issue. So there would be ways to maybe make that up. But obviously, if a student is sick, I think the normal that's something that you'd have to take up with the individual principal of that building. So Mr. Forrest or Mr. Thorson, they would guide you better specifically. It's going to be hard to generalize in a lot of the things when it comes to these, because we're going to have to know specifics. And that didn't really answer your question, but it's sort of a new world. Snow days now, we've even had discussions on now that we can all be remote, does a snow day look the same? So, these are some of the things we're wrestling with on the administrative level too. So you'll have more guidance on that as we get going here. So that didn't really answer your question, but it's a little bit of an answer. Sorry. And we're at the 7 o'clock. We're past 7 o'clock, but we still want to. If there's any last question you might have? Did one just come on? We'll just give you a second if there's anything else that's sort of something.
I just want to point out, a parent asked in the Q&A and sent some really interesting tips from your perspective. I have that email and I will definitely share it. It's not, we can't get into all of it right now, but those are definitely that's great feedback. Some of the stuff I browsed through it while other people were presenting, and we're already addressing some of it. But thank you for taking the time to write that list out, because sometimes, you know, like we said, on the other side of it, we're not thinking, our frame of mind isn't your frame of mind, and we're not living the same experience. So thank you very much.
And just to follow up on that question I was trying to answer, you know what I think is a great thing for me to do is I'm going to bring that up. I'll talk to the administrators tomorrow and just kind of get a sense of that. And if you want to contact, you know, the office or email Mr. Thorson or Mr. Forrest, they might be able to. That's one thing. I'm not sure is my answer, but I'll look into it, and I'll certainly bring that up as a something we need to look at. Any other questions?
Mike, this isn't obviously a question, but I just kind of to follow up on Sarah's thank you and, you know, people staying on here. We have a good turnout. Mr. Loomis might have won that bet. But one of the insights that I had spoke about last night was just kind of a renewal of the partnership with homes and families. And that's something that I'm really excited for. I think that we're seeing, you know, we saw it swing in the spring where everybody kind of went home and parents a little bit had to take over. And I think having that middle ground where we're seeing these questions and this feedback and your input and your involvement is really exciting for me. I think that's a really encouraging insight that I'm seeing is kind of a renewal of that connection of educating young people. It's something we all take a whole lot of pride in. And so I'm really excited for that. So I would kudos whoever sent that email and everybody for coming on here and taking the time and putting in the investment, you know.
Yeah, thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. The other thing is this isn't like a standalone, right? I don't know if you want to talk about that, Mike, that we're planning to do this again. Yeah,
we've heard, you know, this might have been great, but then you get into the school year and you need to really, you have an immediate, you need an answer because you're working. You can't be on, you know, trying to answer this question. You're struggling. We totally understand the struggles parents are having, especially the concerns now with health issues of family members. So we plan on, as the year rolls out, to have more sessions, maybe once a week or maybe once every 2 weeks, as just Q&As if you're having issues, where we can be available to just kind of troubleshoot any issues you're having to make it run smoother, so you're not being, you know, that frustration level is being taken care of. We can get you some answers, or you're just making us aware so we can fix the issue. And I will share this slide show with everybody that sent their email in the Google form.
I see there's a question about MED about will things be more streamlined, less to check and log into Google Classroom, IXL to find assignments, Raz Kids, Google Docs, et cetera, et cetera. Can links be provided in Google Class to the assignments in the other places? So at the MED level, you know, as the other panelists have said, you know, the staff is getting a lot of PD and training. You know, a lot of what the tweaks will make come from trial and error. Posting links in Google Classroom is pretty simple, but at the MED level, we utilize those programs, which means with more programs comes more passwords. So at the MED level on Monday night, we went over the Clever program, which is a portal for students can access right through Google Chrome. There's a little on the up near, if you'll point where the extensions show up in the corner there, where your little grid view, like where your Screencastify icon on your student's Chromebook on Chrome, you should see a little blue circle with a white C in there. That's the Clever portal. So that's where the kids can go in. If they see an assignment on Google Classroom that says, please complete IXL skill J1, yes, a link can be posted there, but the kids are pretty familiar with going to Clever, and then they click on IXL, and within those, like at least within IXL, we star the skills that they need to do, and they show up right in a list for the students there. So, but that's great feedback, Christine. Thank you. You know, I'm in the MED, and we're talking about how do we streamline, how do we organize, not just for the high school students, but for all students, given that we're all going to be on our Chromebooks. So thank you. And I'll bring that back to the MED staff, faculty and staff.
Great question. You're welcome. Any final questions? I just like to thank our panelists too. They did a great job. Thank you for giving up your time. I know you have busy family lives too. So thank you very much. Again, keep an eye out for our next session where we'd like to be able to help a little more. And have a good night. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good night.